The University of Washington has become a hotbed of extremism, and the people in charge want you to think they've got it under control. They don't want you to know that Jews on campus are living in fear, or that student groups are literally supporting terrorism. And they definitely don't want you to know that faculty and staff are part of the problem. Because while everyone's talking about Columbia and Harvard and the other big-name dumpster fires, UW has quietly avoided the spotlight. It's time to expose them, because what's happening there is way worse than you think. Let's start just days after October 7th, when the world was still in shock by the atrocities committed against babies and grandparents and young people dancing at a music festival. Anyone with a conscience was horrified, but a group at the University of Washington held an anti-Israel rally. They called themselves Students United for Palestinian Equal Rights, or SUPER, and they did something super disgusting. Their flyer had an image of a paraglider, like the ones who sailed into Israel to murder and kidnap. Imagine if days after 9/11, you got an email about an anti-America rally with a cute little airplane on it. It's not just heartless, it's glorifying terrorism. And the rally itself lived up to the hype. Protesters chanted for intifada and revolution. And check out how this guy described October 7th.
The violence necessitated by an anti-colonial struggle.
Killing babies, murdering dancers, brutalizing young women, kidnapping families. It was all necessary because of colonialism. Jewish students were terrified. They hid their Stars of David and took off their yarmulkes. They avoided campus and skipped class. In the months that followed, swastikas sprouted around campus like mushrooms after a rainstorm, and the hateful rallies continued. And no, we're not talking about one or two incidents. The campus became a hostile environment for Jews. Like on the first night of Hanukkah, when Jewish students had to relocate their candle lighting because protesters swarmed the area. Yup, they're calling for all of Israel to be Arab from the river to the sea. No Jews allowed. Happy Hanukkah, Jewish students. Things got so bad, the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights opened a Title VI investigation, and the administration launched an antisemitism task force. Which sounds great, but while the government was investigating and the task force was task forcing, the bullies on campus went right on bullying, and the university did nothing. In April, the student center was taken over by protesters and covered with violent graffiti, like "Occupation Justifies Resistance" and "Piss on the Zionists." Later that month came the illegal encampment. An angry mob of masked thugs took over the quad for weeks. Jews were harassed and assaulted, people were punched, attacked, stalked, and chased. Think about how insane this was. The university let a violent mob camp out for weeks. And sure, there were students under some of those masks, but the rest? Who even knows who these people were? No one checked, no one cared, no one knew what they were capable of. A cloud of fear and danger overtook the campus. Get this, the university had to leave the graffiti up for a while because they couldn't ensure the safety of their own employees. I mean, if you can't even protect your cleaning crew, how can you possibly keep your Jewish students safe? But even after all that, they still didn't enforce their rules or call the cops. Instead, University President Kessler opened negotiations with the leaders of the Tentifada. As a negotiation tactic, they launched a new wave of violent, hateful graffiti and bragged about it to the president's face. Seriously. And the craziest part? It worked. She completely caved. She agreed to a bunch of their demands, and she let them all off the hook for illegally camping in the quad for weeks. But at least the protesters were finally satisfied, right? Not quite. At a Board of Regents meeting in September, Jewish speakers tried to expose the climate of fear on campus, only to be drowned out by a screaming mob.
We are shutting this meeting down!
We are shutting this meeting down!
We are not leaving!
We are not leaving!
Campus police made a chilling decision. It was too dangerous to remove the protesters. Instead, they evacuated the Jewish speakers, the entire board, and President Kessler.
Let's go.
But even the exits weren't safe, so police led them onto a gravel rooftop and down emergency stairs to get out. The university's leaders had to flee their own meeting like they were escaping a burning building, a real-time demonstration of exactly what the Jewish speakers were there to warn about. But President Kessler was about to get an even more terrifying lesson. In November, they attacked her home. They slashed her tires. They covered her house and car with pro-Hamas graffiti. They proudly posted images of the whole thing on social media, along with an explicit threat to the president and the entire board. You will not know peace until you meet the demands of our movement. The clock is ticking. Yikes. Look, you can't appease a lawless mob. These people spent a year glorifying actual terrorists, so it shouldn't be a surprise when they commit their own acts of terror. So where do things stand now? Remember that whole federal investigation? It found that little to no action was taken by the university to protect students and community members from a hostile environment. But here's what you need to know. If a university agrees to fix the problem, the Office of Civil Rights pauses the investigation and enters what's basically a settlement agreement. That's what happened with the University of Washington. They're now legally required to enforce their own rules and prove they're making progress, because if they don't, the case can move forward at any time. It's basically like they're on probation, like they have to wear an ankle bracelet and start their car with a breathalyzer until they can be trusted on their own. It should be a humbling experience, a time for serious reflection and a renewed commitment to do better for its Jewish community. Instead, they issued this press release. Office of Civil Rights concludes UW investigation with resolution agreement. No finding of liability or wrongdoing. Right, no liability. Just a little federal supervision until they can prove they're following the law. That press release isn't just misleading. It's not just unrepentant. It's a sign of a very disturbing truth, that the problem at UW is so much bigger than some fanatical students. The problem is systemic. And it's not just me saying that. Remember that task force? They found that antisemitism at the university was widespread, systemic, and institutionalized. It's no wonder that 60% of Jewish students felt unwelcome on campus, and 92% of Israelis, because the anti-Jewish rot runs deep into the faculty and staff at the university. Student activists aren't just enabled, they're indoctrinated by professionals who are supposed to be shaping their young minds for the better. Like professors who didn't just encourage the encampment, they held classes there. Or administrators who broadcast messages demonizing Israel to students. One staff member sent an email that said, "Here's a video on how to stay hopeful," and the video suggested boycotting Israel. And that's just one example. Jews aren't even safe in the classroom. The task force received complaints about biased professors who singled out Jewish and Israeli students, making them uncomfortable and afraid to say what they really believed. But that was all before. This is now. We've got federal supervision and a commitment to do better. So how are things going right now? Well, remember Super UW? They were suspended as a student group, which sounds like a great step in theory. But they're still organizing, still holding events, still glorifying terrorists. And they're not even trying to hide it. Their Instagram literally has a post called, "What has Super been up to lately?" Here they are in January, holding a new member orientation that felt more like Intro to Terrorism. They played a clip of this guy, a member of a Palestinian terrorist group who justified attacks on civilians. They celebrated Layla Khalid, who was convicted for her role in multiple hijackings. And when someone asked about October 7th, listen to the answer.
My response is like, it's a phrase we hear a lot, but like, resistance is justified when people are occupied, and the person you're arguing with might not agree with that. They might say, "Oh, but what about the lives lost and stuff?" But I feel like that's a line that has helped me. Like, if we really believe in that line, then we really believe that what happened on October 7th was not what the Israelis say would happen. It was, a victory for the Palestinian people.
Like I said, Intro to Terrorism. In February, this supposedly suspended student group held a widely publicized rally on campus, and they chanted this. Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas mastermind behind the grotesque October 7th attacks. Think about the scar he left, and imagine what kind of person would be happy about it. And it's not like the administration was blindsided by any of this. Jewish community members specifically warned them ahead of time, and yet they did nothing. Well, that's not true. They eventually issued a statement claiming they had to uphold the protesters' right to speak. So the administration is hiding behind free speech as if their hands are tied. But here's the thing. They have an obligation to enforce their own rules about when, where, and how people exercise their free speech on campus. Even if you ignore that this was a suspended group openly violating its suspension, or that they were literally promoting a US designated terrorist, they were flatly violating the university's own rules, which don't allow sound amplification while classes are in session. And yes, they did this while classes were in session, with tons of campus police standing around, just watching. Their hands weren't tied. The administration could stop the bullies anytime they want to. But instead, it's like they're looking for any excuse not to. As far as I know, not one single student was ever disciplined by the university for any of this stuff. But get this, during the most recent Regents meeting, they beefed up security at the homes of President Kause and the board members. So they take the threat seriously when it comes to the leaders. But Jewish students and faculty, they're on their own. It's like if the captain and crew of the Titanic sailed off with the only lifeboats. It's protecting the most powerful and ignoring the most vulnerable. Which brings me back to where we started. The University of Washington is a hotbed of extremism. Because the administration is complicit at worst and complacent at best. Because the university is captured by a climate of fear, where those who step out of line are scared for their safety and well-being. Because discrimination against Jews isn't just tolerated, it's baked into the system. And it's only getting worse. It's time for the university to make a choice, because on March 10th, the Office for Civil Rights sent a warning to every school under investigation for Title VI violations, including the University of Washington. Enforcement actions are coming for anyone that fails to protect their Jewish students. Will this finally force UW to get its house in order? Or will they keep pretending nothing's wrong? I guess we'll find out soon enough.